Hi, I'm going to demonstrate how to do a technique that you can use in your watercolors. You can use it as a backdrop for acrylics as well. They're called washes, and you're also dyeing the paper. Gosh, terms are not going to come to my brain right now. Anyway, basically what you're doing is tinting the paper. On this one, we have just a pretty much solid wash of light blue in the back, and there are some variations depending on how much water was put in it. And then I do have my drawing of a snowman over the top of it, but this is going to be what we call a monochromatic. And we'll do that in a minute, but before we get to it, you do in fact need to know how to accomplish some of these backgrounds. Okay, so this is just a wash of blues and pinks, and we'll show you how to do that. This is the same thing, but with more paint and being a little braver with it. And I do a lot of cards for my mother-in-law who can't get out to shop anymore. So I will dye a lot of paper while I'm doing it and let it dry, and then I have it to work from later. And when you do this, you could have bleed of the color to the inside, but I think that's kind of cool. Excuse me. And sometimes you might even say, hey, I like the inside or the back side better than the front side. All right, so how do you do that? All right, so you're going to need some water, and if you're doing a full sheet, which is 22 inches by 30 inches, you might actually need a bathtub, but for this we just need something to put some water in. Let the paper soak a minute, get wet on both sides. That'll help it to stick down. Especially with this slightly less expensive paper, it won't be tending to buckle as badly if you let it stick down. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take it out of the water and put all 4 sheets down. Hopefully they'll all fit on this piece of paper or this plastic. It's actually a cutting mat, but just because something's supposed to be for one purpose doesn't mean you can't repurpose it and use it in a totally different way. All right. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to show you various ways to tint the paper. If there's just way too much water sitting on the top, you can always blot a little bit off with some paper towel. All right, so you got that. Now you're going to take a relatively big brush. This is our number 12. And we're going to get some water, and we're going to come in with a little bit of alizarin crimson. And we're just going to put some of that down, maybe just get some water and put some plain water down, move it around, get a little bit of our ultramarine blue, play with it a little bit, let it run around. If you have a spray bottle, you can hit it with spray bottle, move some of the paint around that way. And you're just going to let it move around and in the water and do its own thing. Okay, you're not really trying to control it, you're just trying to tint the paper. And have some fun with it. You can add in, don't get too many colors going. Pink and blue usually work real well for what we're going to do, which is a snow scene. All right, so there's that. All right, so another way you can get an interesting effect is with your reds. And in this case, you probably are going to need to use a little bit more of the color that you're using because the salt will push it around a bit. And then when you get it the way you want it to be, you can either hit it with a little bit more water, and that will move things around, or you can just toss a little bit of salt on it, and I actually accidentally got some salt on the one above it as well, but it doesn't matter because it'll still be a really cool effect. And this end of it didn't really get salt, so it's not going to be affected. But I'm trying to show you a lot of concepts, in a short amount of time because they're not difficult and they're not worthy of a 20-minute episode. All right, so if you were going to do a wash like I have for the snowman here, all you would do is just start with your wet piece of paper, and on one end of the paper to the other, trying to keep it relatively the same amount of color, adding more water as you need it, more water, going down the whole page. And it would be roughly the same blue all the way. You can always use a bigger brush to do this if you happen to have one. Watercolor will wash out of your, I'll say if you had an old house painting brush that was clean, you could use that. Okay, so you got the whole thing covered. All right, so let's say you actually wanted to do a scene where you had let's pretend you want to have some sky. So at the top of the sky, if you look out, it's always darker at the very top, and then it fades into being almost white by the time you get down to the horizon. But let's say you wanted to do some clouds. So you would just come in with some plain water. You can blot that out. You see how that takes out some of the color? Okay. Swirl it around. This is not science. The clouds can be however they happen to turn out. Okay. And then lighter as it gets to the horizon. And then the opposite is going to happen towards the bottom of the page, in that it will be darker as it's closer to you, and it will fade into the horizon. Okay, so let's say that you wanted to throw in some mountains or maybe some trees or something. We're going to use a real light purple, and we're going to just toss in some very far away mountains. We're not going to try to be exacting on this. We're just going to maybe just the hint of some mountains are back there, okay? And you don't want to take them all the way up into your clouds, and you don't have to be precise and all that. I'm just demoing an idea and a technique, and then you can pull that down a little bit if you feel the need to, but you certainly wouldn't have to. All right, now we're going to come up here to the one, well, actually that's still pretty wet. We're going to pretend that this has had a minute to dry. We're going to come in with a slightly darker blue, and we're going to put some just hints, and we're not going to try to be exacting on this, but you can already start to see the hint of a tree. Okay, one can be bigger than the other. You can come back and add higher up. You're going to have to work relatively quickly so you don't get backwashes and stuff, but so you've got some trees, and then as the paint washes off your brush, you can just put in some distant trees. Okay, not that hard, actually kind of fun. Want you to play with it and have a good time. Obviously, you're not going to try to do 4 of them all at once, as I did. But this is to show you some techniques that should be helpful. And don't worry about the fact that this one is curling on the edge, because by the time it's dry, it will go flat for you again, or relatively flat. And as a friend of mine who used to always paint with real thin paper and accept all of the backwashes and other random things that happened, he would then take it home and iron it. I would be kind of careful about getting paint that might transfer onto your ironing board and your good clothes. You might want to throw down an old tea towel or an old paper bag or something to iron on to protect your ironing surface and your iron. But that is how an old gentleman used to fix that problem. All right, I hope this was helpful.